back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, July 29th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, of course, after I'm done for the week, Tua gets a new contract. Jordan Love gets a new contract. Well, Jordan Love got it before Tua. But we'll get into that. We'll talk about both of their deals. And discuss them. And then in the second part of the show, I did kind of want to take a look at the updated list of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL as well. So that'll be the second part of the show. Then we'll continue running back rankings. Today we will be doing the NFC South. I'll talk about Brock Purdy, some recent comments by him on how he's improving his game, or hopes to improve his game going into the 2024 season. And then we will get into talking about the Raiders mocking Patrick Mahomes and just his response to that. That'll be the final part of the show. So let's get into the first topic, though, which is discussing Jordan Love and Tua getting their new contracts. So, of course, like I said, of course they happen when I'm done for the week. And both quarterbacks coming off of good seasons. Tua leading the league in passing yards, 29 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, and then Jordan Love, 4,159 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks. Now, for Jordan Love, he got a 4-year extension, $220 million, and he got the annual AAV of $55 million per year. And, struggled, at times during the season. I mean, that middle part of the year was rough for the Packers, but they were able to figure it out. Jordan Love started to play really well, and they ended up making the playoffs. And yeah, he played really well against the Cowboys in that playoff game. They had a chance to beat the 49ers as well, but they fell a little bit short there. And this is going to be a big year for him. He's gotten paid now, and I know him and Aaron Rodgers were joking a little bit because Rodgers congratulated him on getting paid, and Rodgers still has a house in Green Bay. So he was saying, hey, if you want to buy it, you got your chance to. And Jordan Love said, not at the moment. Maybe if you give me a hometown discount, but he could check up on it during the season. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, he's tied for the highest paid player in NFL history with Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. So yeah, he's getting the same annual AAV as both of those guys, which we'll talk about in the second part of the show. But the first 9 games he had 2,000 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a passer rating of 80.5, 58.7 completion percentage, and the team was 3-6. But then his final 8 games, 2,150 passing yards, 18 touchdowns to 1 interception, a passer rating of 112.7, and a 70.3 completion percentage, and the team was 6-2. So, and I have talked about this, but the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, said, this is a big stretch for Jordan Love. And Jordan Love really proved that he was the guy, down the stretch. And, I said all along, I was like, they're going to get a deal done. Even when I was watching Tom Grossi, the great Tom Grossi, who's a big Packers fan, You know, he wasn't concerned at all either. They were going to get a deal done, and they did. And they did it. With Tua, it was a little different because, you know, the Dolphins, they weren't going to give him the same money that, you know, Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence got, although it was very close to it. But, you know, I wasn't sure about Tua. Like, were the Dolphins going to wait till the end of the year? What are they going to end up doing? And they ended up giving him his new contract as well. So let's get into Tua's contract. So his was also a 4-year extension, $212.4 million, $167.1 million guaranteed, which is a lot. And then he's getting an annual AAV of $53.1 million per year, and that is the second largest 4-year agreement in NFL history, and can increase pay up to $55.35 million per year for a maximum total value of $221.4 million. So he's got a little bit more money than Jared Goff. And then he is just below Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence, who are getting $55 million. And the past 2 years, he's second in the NFL in passing yards per attempt, second in passer rating, fourth in total passing yards, fifth in passing touchdowns. The Dolphins averaged 27.6 points per game when Tua was the starter, 16.3 points per game in 4 games. Tua was missed due to injury, and, you know, guys like Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson were starting in those games. So yeah, I mean that actually does, you know, favor Tua because, you know, I've criticized him, but, you know, when he doesn't play, the Dolphins are a different team. But yeah, last year, of course, you know, led the league in passing yards. You got the statistics from last year up here. You know, again, you'd like to see the interceptions down, the touchdowns up, especially going into this year. But you know what? He's got his money, and coming off of the year that he had, yeah, he deserved to get paid. Now, I don't know if he deserved to get paid the money that he got. Same thing with Jordan Love, but that's just what the quarterback market's going to be. Now, Jordan Love got paid a little bit more than Tua. So let me know what you guys think, though. Who deserved the bigger contract? Was it Jordan Love or was it Tua? And actually, we will see these two guys playing each other on Thanksgiving. That'll be the nightcapper on NBC, which would be a lot of fun. These two high-powered offenses going at it. Although it's going to be cold, so, you know, that bodes well for the Packers. The Dolphins, listen, they have played well in some cold weather games, but you know, them going to Lambeau, it's going to be very cold. It's going to be different. Probably not going to be as cold as that playoff game against the Chiefs, but still, you know, it's that should be a fun game though. That one definitely circle on your calendars. But, you know, good for these guys for getting paid. I mean, I think they both deserve to get paid, but like I said, you know, what they're getting paid per year, yeah, it might be high, but that's just what it is right now. And, you know, you hear all those rumblings about Dak Prescott, you know, resetting the quarterback market. So he might end up being the highest paid quarterback when it's all said and done. But, yeah, both of these guys finally got paid. We finally got something to talk about because it was constant up there. Talks are encouraging. Things are moving in a positive direction. But these two guys finally got their contracts because Jordan Love wasn't practicing, but he was still showing up. He was holding in instead of holding out, and that ended up working out. And I'm sure you guys saw the video of Tua saying "Show me the money" in that video on social media. So, you know, he's pumped up. And yeah, these two teams were playoff teams last year, and I like the Packers' chances better to make the playoffs than I do the Dolphins. But that has more so to do with the conference. But the Dolphins are definitely going to be in the mix. So whether it's with the division or the wild card, they're going to be in the mix. So we'll see how they do. But both guys, you know, got their contracts. And now it really just comes down to Dak Prescott because, you know, we saw these two guys get paid. We saw Jared Goff get paid this offseason. Trevor Lawrence got paid. all these guys got paid. Now it's, now our attention turns to Dak and what him and the Cowboys are going to end up doing. I know I was reading a little bit this weekend, and they did make offers to CeeDee Lamb and to Dak. They're trying to work things out. So, we'll see. Because I was basically wrong on Tua, because I said maybe the Dolphins let him play out the final year and then they reevaluate at the end of the year if they want to bring him back. But it didn't matter. They were like, we're going to get this done, and that's what they ended up doing. So, for me, though, I think, I would take Jordan Love over Tua. So, I mean, and, like, you look at the numbers last year, I mean, Tua's got more passing yards, but Jordan Love has 3 less picks. He's got 3 more touchdowns. Towards the end of the year, he played really well. And the Dolphins, they kind of, collapsed at the end. And at the beginning of the year, it was the opposite. Tua and the Dolphins, they came out on fire. The Packers, got off to a good start, and then they kind of tailed off in the middle of the season. It was a roller coaster of a season for the Packers. The Dolphins, they started off hot, and then, towards the end, they cooled off. But in between all that, they didn't really play well against the good teams. The Packers had, that signature win against the Chiefs in Lambeau that kind of like set the tone for the second half of the season, in my opinion. So, but I think Jordan Love, I would take Jordan Love over Tua right now. But I think Tua is on, like, his offense is better. But, Jordan Love, I think, is the better quarterback of the two. So, but you know what? They both are coming off of good years, and like I said, they both deserve to get paid. And now let's see what they do in 2024. We do have a game this week, which I'm really excited about. So, we're getting closer. But let me know what you guys think about the new deals for these quarterbacks. How do you think they're going to do in 2024? Let me know in the comments. But we'll talk about them a little bit more when we come back from our first break, because we will talk about, we'll look at the updated list of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. We'll get into that. I'll talk about it. And, that's what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the updated list now of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, so I want to get into that. So, of course, we talked about Jordan Love and Tua. We're going to talk about them a little bit more now here in this segment, because I just wanted to take a look at the updated list now. And so this is the updated list right here. So you got Joe Burrow. His total value is $275 million. But the annual AAV is $55 million. Jordan Love is at $220. He's got $55 million per year. And then Trevor Lawrence is at $55 million also. Tua's a little bit below that. He's getting $53 million a year, a little bit higher than Jared Goff, who's $53 million on the dot. Justin Herbert's at $52.5 million. Lamar Jackson's at 52. Jalen Hurts is at 51. Kyler Murray, 46.1. Deshaun Watson, 46. Kirk Cousins, 45. Patrick Mahomes is 45. Josh Allen, 43. And then Matthew Stafford, 40. This is what I could fit on the graphic here. But yeah, when you look at this list, though, and you see how far down Patrick Mahomes is in terms of the annual salary, and he is the best quarterback in the NFL. It just shows you how, well, I mean, if you look at the total value, I mean, he's making, $4.5 billion overall. But, he started taking the pay cuts to try to, keep some guys like Chris Jones. They weren't able to keep L'Jarius Sneed, but, keeping Chris Jones was huge. But it just, in terms of looking at the annual salary per year, the annual AAV, and he's, down on the list there, is interesting. But again, that just shows you how different, the quarterback market is. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is still gonna, still has the highest contract, but I mean, look how far down he is. In terms of getting, $45 million compared to $55 million. It's just it's interesting because, when you look at Jordan Love, I mean, listen, he had a great year, but there are some concerns. Like, I think he's going to be, he's the real deal, in my opinion. But, he only did this 1 year. He only performed like that in 1 year as a starter. Is he going to repeat that and be even better? Now, I think he will, but I think there are some concerns there. I mean, the Packers are banking on him, being the guy. And like I said, in all likelihood, he is the guy. But there is that other side of it where it's like, you gave him this monster contract. He has the same amount. He's making the same as Joe Burrow in terms of AAV, but can he do it again? That's the question. Trevor Lawrence getting $55 million a year too. Look, I think, he's still good, but, he's coming off of a down year, and he hasn't really lived up to the hype just yet. And now we're going into year number 4 with him. Now, it's not like he's been bad. Now, last year he was bad, like especially towards the end of the year. Part of that, I think, again, is due to injury. But, again, $55 million a year is a little too much for me. Tua coming off of the year that he had, I mean, he deserved to get paid. I mean, he's making a little bit more than Jared Goff. But that's what the market is right now. It's going to be different. And it's going to be different when you see some other quarterbacks getting paid. Because the guys that you see lower on the list, like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, I mean, you would expect those guys to be at the top. Now, Joe Burrow being at the top, again, that doesn't, I'm fine with that because Joe Burrow has played in a Super Bowl and 2 AFC championship games. And him and Trevor Lawrence have the same contract. Trevor Lawrence only has 1 playoff win. But the Jaguars really believe that he's the guy. So, we'll see what happens there. Jalen Hurts, another guy that got paid. Like I said, making $51 million a year. His contract is $255. And in terms of the guaranteed money, Joe Burrow has the most guaranteed money. Or actually, no, Deshaun Watson has the most guaranteed money. He's at $230. And it's fully guaranteed. His whole contract is fully guaranteed. And that contract is probably the worst contract on here right now. Because we could talk about the Trevor Lawrence making 55 and Tua making 53. But Deshaun Watson, his whole contract is fully guaranteed, and he has not lived up to that. That was a mistake by the Browns. But you know what? They were desperate when they shouldn't have been. Because you know what? You probably could have kept Baker, and you could have tried to work things out. And I get it. They went from making the playoffs in 2020, and then the following year was a down year. But you know what? Baker was hurt. Baker wasn't fully healthy. But they figured, you know what? We have an opportunity to get this guy an upgrade over Baker, despite everything that was going on off the field. Deshaun Watson makes us better. So they did that, but they gave up a lot to get him. And on top of that, they give him this big contract, and he hasn't lived up to it. And he probably won't. I don't think he's going to live up to it. I think he's going to play okay this year, but I don't think you're going to see him playing to an elite level because of the amount of time that he's missed. And even when he was playing, he really wasn't that good. So that contract right now, you're looking at that, comparing it to the other ones. I think it's the worst contract here. And I will say about Burrow, I mean, I am concerned about that wrist. Now, I'm trying to stay on the positive side when it comes to the Bengals, because if Joe Burrow's healthy, the Bengals are going to be a Super Bowl contender. They just are. Like, I know there are individuals that have, some issues with their depth and how their defense is going to be. But if Joe Burrow is healthy, the Bengals are, an 11-win team. I forget what I said for my schedule breakdown, but it's going to be between them and the Ravens for the top of the division. But you got to worry about that too. Because, he keeps getting hurt. I mean, that contract's not going to look good. So, fortunately for Kirk Cousins, I went off about Deshaun Watson. Yeah, you give Kirk Cousins a contract that, he's getting $100 million guaranteed. And he's coming off of a major injury. Now, it is not the biggest contract here. Actually, Stafford's contract's a little lower than him. But yeah, he's, everybody else is making over $200 million. Mahomes is almost to $1 billion. So, in terms of looking at all the other quarterbacks that are getting paid, I mean, Kirk is, towards the bottom. At least the quarterbacks that I have here on the screen. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's me talking about this. It's only going to go up. And you also have the salary cap increasing. Like, there's going to be guys making more money than this. When the next cycle of quarterbacks got to get paid. Dak Prescott, what is he going to get? If Dak Prescott is making more money than all the quarterbacks on this screen, that's a problem for me because I don't think he deserves to be the highest paid quarterback. Now, Patrick Mahomes has, again, $4.5 billion, so he has the biggest contract of everybody. But I'm looking strictly at, what you're making per year. And, if Dak Prescott is at the top of the list, like, I think Dak is a solid quarterback, but I don't think Dak deserves to be the highest paid quarterback. But he's probably going to end up getting that kind of money. Because a team is going to come along, even if it's not the Cowboys, they could be desperate, and they say, we want you. And he ends up getting that contract. So, but you hope that some of these guys take the approach like Mahomes is taking, where he'll take a pay cut. So they're able to, keep key guys on their roster, and they're able to go and win. And that's why it worked so well with Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady was always taking pay cuts so the Patriots could keep their guys. Patrick Mahomes is doing the same thing. So, and I'm not, and it probably, I think some of these guys will do that if they have to. But only time will tell. But it's just interesting looking at, like, again, Mahomes has the biggest contract, but, I mean, look how far down he is on the list here. Him and Josh Allen, who I think are they're the two best quarterbacks on this list here. They're towards the bottom. With the veterans, with Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford. I mean, they're veterans too, but, Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford have been around longer. But yeah, it's just, it's interesting. It is interesting looking at this list because, I think all the quarterbacks on this list, are solid, other than maybe, Deshaun Watson with how he's played, but, and not basically really not playing these last couple of years. But listen, I mean, Patrick Mahomes should be at the top. I mean, again, in terms of the total value, he is at the top, but annual AAV, he's near the bottom. So, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting to go over it now with Jordan Love and Tua getting paid. Let me know what you guys think though about the contracts here. What really jumps out at you? Again, this is courtesy of overthecap.com. Because again, I just wanted to take a look at the updated list now with those two guys getting paid. And Dak Prescott, he might be at the very top when he gets paid. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll get back into running back rankings. So we'll be doing the NFC South. So that is what we'll do when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to rank the running backs in the NFC South. I did want to bring up the Lions did extend one of their tackles, Taylor Decker, to a 3-year, $60 million contract extension. So I just wanted to bring that up. So good for the Lions and their fans, making sure that they keep one of their key guys on the offensive line. So I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, let's get into ranking the NFC South running backs. An interesting division this year. Last year, of course, the Buccaneers won it. This year, I mean, we'll see what happens. So at 4, I put the Panthers. And I don't really know what's going to happen with the Panthers backfield because they did draft a running back, Jonathan Brooks, but he's recovering from an injury, an ACL injury, I believe. So I don't know what his timetable is, but they're expecting him to be the guy, I would imagine, because Miles Sanders was a disappointment. That's one of the reasons why I got the Panthers low or at 4 is Miles Sanders. They brought him in, and he just he just did not play well last year for the Panthers. And actually, but before that, I just wanted to take a look at Jonathan Brooks' stats. So in 11 games last year for Texas, 1,139 rushing yards, 10 rushing touchdowns. He had 286 receiving yards and a touchdown. He had 11 touchdowns in total. But yeah, he is recovering from an injury. So I don't know what exactly. I was looking at. I was trying to find his stats, but also I wanted to see like what if there were any updates. And still recovering. And we're going to see him at some point this year. He's recovering. And you got Miles Sanders, you got Chuba Hubbard as well in the backfield. So I really don't know what to expect from this Panthers backfield, if I'm going to be completely honest. And I think there's a lot of people that are still down on the Panthers. I'm kind of one of those people. I don't really think they're... I think there'll be some improvements, but I still, I'm still not very optimistic about them. Yeah, so as of 6 days ago, Panthers GM Dan Morgan said Jonathan Brooks has no timeline on when he'll be back. He is still working his way back from the torn ACL, and he was placed on the NFI list, the non-football injury list. We'll see when he does eventually come back. So it's really going to be on Miles Sanders, and it is going to be on Chuba Hubbard, which I think Chuba Hubbard's probably going to be the lead back because based off of what Miles Sanders did last year. Because looking at his stats from last year, and they were not very good. Last year, I wanted to have the entire, here we go. Last year, he had 432 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, compared to the previous season in Philly when he had 1,269 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. So, he was a disappointment last year for the Panthers. That looks like a bad contract. He could end up not even being on the team. They could end up maybe cutting him. I don't really know. But, he just was not good for them last year. And then for Chuba Hubbard, he had 902 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. So, honestly, I think he's got a leg up on Miles Sanders. He probably is going to end up being the lead back to start the year. But, that's why I got the Panthers at 4. Just because I don't really know who's going to end up being the starter, but I'd probably lean towards it being Chuba Hubbard. So I'm going to put the Panthers at 4. I got the Saints at 3 with Alvin Kamara and Jamaal Williams. Kamara, I think we're starting to see the explosiveness tail off. I think he's still... he still had good games last year, but... I don't think he's not the same Alvin Kamara. Like, he's not the Kamara he was when, he scored, 6 touchdowns against the Vikings. Like, I don't think we're going to see that anymore. But I think him and Jamaal Williams are a nice little tandem. You still got Kendre Miller as well, who I think, could play a bigger role on this offense at some point. Although I think he's hurt as well. But, both these guys, Jamaal Williams and Alvin Kamara, they're getting older. But they're still going to play a role on this team. But, for me, I still got to put them at 3. Now, the Saints are going to be an interesting team to watch because, they finished the season strong, but are they going to be able to carry that momentum into this season, which I'm not really sure. Kamara last year, just looking at their stats, Kamara had 694 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Still involved in the passing game. Of course, he was 33rd in rushing yards in the NFL. But, Kamara, he is more of a receiving back. And last year, 466 receiving yards and a touchdown. You looking at his stats from the first few seasons in the league. I mean, his rookie season, he had 826 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. He had 709 his following year and 4 touchdowns, 533 and 1 touchdown, 756 in 2020 and 5 touchdowns. But yeah, since Drew Brees is retired, his numbers have gone down. And the closest he got to 1,000 yards was 932 in 2020, and he had 16 rushing touchdowns that year. But yeah, the numbers have slowly gone down. 2021 and 2022, his rushing yards, he had 898 in 2021 and 897 in 2022. But yeah, last year 694. He played in 13 games. But yeah, I think he's starting to decline a little bit. Still a productive player, but not what he once was when Drew Brees was playing. And then for Jamaal Williams, he had 106 carries, but he only had 306 rushing yards and a touchdown. And yeah, I mean, the previous season with Detroit, he had 17 rushing touchdowns and 262 carries. But like I said, it's not a bad backfield. These guys can still produce. It's just not, I don't think, up to an elite level. But we'll see. But yeah, I got them at 3. And then at 2, I got Rachaad White. I think Rachaad White, you want to get the Buccaneers, you want to see them have a guy that can come in and, compliment him like, when it used to be Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, because you had, Fournette there. Rachaad White, in 2022, his rookie season, he had 129 carries, 481 yards, and a touchdown. Last year, 272 carries, 990 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And, of course, he's another receiving back. He was productive for them. He was 14th in rushing yards last year, and he was tied for second in terms of carries. So he got a lot of carries. But, yeah, you kind of want to see the Buccaneers be able to have someone else to complement him, like I said. And then in terms of his receiving, he had 549 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns compared to the previous season where he had 290 and 2 touchdowns. That was with Tom Brady, his last year in Tampa. But, yeah, I think Rachaad White, in my opinion, I mean, he's going into his 3rd year. I expect another good year from him. Because, again, the uncertainty with the Panthers and the Saints, their backfield getting up there in age. I like Rachaad White, and the Buccaneers backfield second out of this group of teams here. So I got him at 2, and he's going to play a big part in the passing game once again this year. I mean, the Buccaneers, they ran it back. They brought back everybody: Baker, Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield. They're trying to work on a contract with Tristan Wirfs. Their left tackle. So, they also Levante David they brought back. Let's see what they do this year. But I expect Rachaad White to, of course, continue to produce like he did last year. So I got him at 2. And let's go to the number 1 spot. Now, I only included Bijan Robinson, but you also got Tyler Algier there. I like their backfield the best. Bijan Robinson's going into his 2nd year, and, many fans were frustrated on how he was used last year, but, now you got Kirk Cousins in there. Last year, he finished with, so, they're going to rely on Bijan to, help bring Kirk along, with Kirk trying to work his way back from the Achilles and, get himself back into game shape. Bijan Robinson had 214 carries, 976 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. I think he's going to have over 1,000 yards this year. He played in all 17 games. He had 487 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. I think he's going to get over 1,000 yards this year. He was 15th in rushing yards. Yeah, so Rachaad White had more rushing yards than him. And he averaged 4.6 yards per carry. So, we'll see. But I expect him. I expect him in his 2nd year. I think he's going to have a really good year. I think he's going to get over 1,000 yards. I have full confidence that he is going to get over 1,000 yards. And like I said, you got Algier there that could take some pressure off of him. Well, not really take some pressure, but give him a break. I like the Falcons' offense going into the year. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Kirk Cousins is going to put up good numbers. But, no, we got to see. I mean, this is a young offense though, because you got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan, Algier. They did bring in other guys like Rondell Moore and Darnell Mooney. So, I'm curious to see how it goes. But I think the Falcons will have a good offense. And Bijan, I think, is going to be, one of the main components of that. I think he's going to have a big year. So, just to kind of reiterate, at 4, I had the Panthers running backs with the uncertainty of who's going to be the lead back. And Jonathan Brooks, who they drafted, still trying to work his way back from injury. So I got them at 4. I got the Saints backfield at 3. The Buccaneers at 2 with Rachaad White. And then at 1, I got Bijan Robinson and the Falcons. So let me know what you guys think about those rankings. How would you rank the NFC South? So we're going to take our next break of the show. And then when we come back, we are going to talk about Brock Purdy. Some comments that he made recently that I wanted to go over. Just talking about the upcoming season and just kind of taking a look back at his 2023 campaign as well. He can improve on that. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Brock Purdy, just kind of taking a look back at his 2023 campaign, and also just some comments that he made for the upcoming 2024 season. And these are some recent comments from him. He said, "With as good of a team that we have, I want to get to that point where we get to the third quarter. There's a couple of drives that are crucial. I'm on top of my stuff. We convert on third downs and we score touchdowns, and the lead just gets out of hand. It's having that Tom Brady kind of feeling. Late in the game, it always felt like Tom was just going to take over and not make it close. I feel like I got to get to that, or I can get to that." He also said, "I want to be dominant, not just win games and feel like, I want to be dominant with consistent decisions and feeling like we're the top dogs every day. There were moments last year in games where I would just, I don't know what it was in that situation or in the situation, but we'd be up and it's, all right, be smart with the ball, or let's just make sure we don't mess up. I want to break through that and get to the point of just being dominant for 4 quarters, man. That's my mindset. It's football, and for 4 quarters, man, we've got to have that bloody mindset of going and taking it every down, every series, every rep." And, so some strong comments there. And those comments tell me, like with all the great things that Brock Purdy has done, that kind of is like, saying I don't want to be looked at as a game manager, because you have a lot of people that look at Brock Purdy as a game manager. Now, I think he's somewhere in the middle because of what the 49ers have been able to do with Brock Purdy, getting to the championship games and, playing in the Super Bowl. I don't know. Just from watching the 49ers, I just feel like they are a better offense. They've been the best version of their offense since Brock Purdy has taken over. But again, you could say, well, they also had a Christian McCaffrey as well. And that's a great point because, and I've said that so many times these last few weeks, with Garoppolo and Trey Lance, Trey Lance never really got a fair shot, just because he got hurt. Garoppolo, I feel like Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's safe to say that at this point. Now, Garoppolo did some nice things with the 49ers when he first got there in 2017. He looked like he was going to be great because the 49ers, they went 5-0 in his starts. They finished the year, I think, what did they finish the year? 6-10? And then the following season, he gets hurt. He ends up getting hurt. And, he was still solid for them, but, again, just kept getting hurt. And, the 49ers moved off of him. And then look at how he played with the Raiders. He was not very good. And now he's a backup. Now he's a backup to Matthew Stafford. So, but you look at Brock Purdy, and I don't know. I think he's been better than Garoppolo. But a lot of people would say that. But yeah, he wants to improve. He does not want to just, sit on the ball and drain out the clock when they're up. He wants to, put the foot on the gas pedal and just keep going. Keep the foot on the gas. And and him talking about Tom Brady, listen, he's never going to be Tom Brady, but you want to have that mindset of, look, we want to like I said, keep the foot on the gas and make sure that the team that we're playing against does not come back. Because how many times did the Patriots run up the score on teams? It was really never often that the Patriots would blow a lead, a significant lead. The Patriots at times are coming back from significant leads, like, of course, the Super Bowl against the Falcons. Also, in the regular season against the Broncos, they're down 24-0. But you know what? It didn't matter because you had Tom Brady. And Brock Purdy wants to be like that. Even if they're down, not just putting your foot on the gas and not letting go, not taking it off. But you also want to be able to come back from deficits as well. And they did that. The 49ers did that. They did that in the playoffs twice last year. Especially against the Lions, down 17. Like, when they were down 17, kind of thought the game was out of reach and it was over. But it wasn't. Now, a couple of things went their way. The IU catch, and when I went and watched the highlights not too long ago, I forgot that Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled right after that. So they had things go their way. But you know what? They could have easily folded, and they could have mailed it in and went home, but they didn't. They didn't. And, you got to give them credit. And I don't think Brock Purdy played bad in the Super Bowl. I thought he played good enough that they could have won. But unfortunately for him and the 49ers, you were playing against a generational talent in Patrick Mahomes. And that's unfortunately, the difference in the game. Brock Purdy is not at Patrick Mahomes' level. He's not. And he's never going to get to that point. I think he can continue to improve. And, we'll see how this Brandon Ayuk situation plays out, because he might not have Brandon Ayuk to start the year. Or he might not have Brandon Ayuk at all, depending on what happens. Now, the 49ers, they say they have no intentions of trading him. So, we'll see. But yeah, Brock Purdy last year, though, 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 4,280 passing yards. And in the postseason, 774 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Can he do even better? Can he have more than 31 touchdowns? I think he can with the offense that, the weapons that he has at his disposal. He could definitely do that. The 11 picks, that's probably around what he's going to have again this year. I don't expect him to be like Aaron Rodgers and have like 5 picks, but, who knows? You go back, going back and looking at, the games against the Browns, he had a pick. He had 2 picks against the Vikings. He had 2 picks against the Bengals. 4 picks against the Ravens. So, in one game, you take out, 2 of them, and he's only got, he's got single digits. But, yeah, that 3-game slide, they had that 3-game slide, and then they lost to the Ravens. That team just really did not lose. Yeah, they went 1-3 against... Yeah, they went 1-3 against the AFC North last year. That was where most of their losses came from, was the AFC North, which is the toughest division in football. And then that other loss against the Vikings as well, when Kirk Cousins was playing really well. Yeah, the 49ers just didn't lose. You look at these scores, 30-7, 30-23. It was 30-20, and then Sean McVay kicked that field goal at the end of the game, which many people were scratching their head like, why? It didn't even matter. 30-12, 35-16, 42-10, 34-3, 27-14, 31-13, 42-19, 28-16, 45-29, and 27-10. Those were, and then also where's the other? Oh, well, these are Brock Purdy stats. He didn't play in the Rams game. I know, because I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, they didn't play Washington then in the year. They played the Rams, but Brock Purdy didn't play. Yeah, so he talks about that, but, I think the 49ers, they do okay. Like, if you're saying they do okay with, keeping the foot on the gas, because they do blow out a lot of teams. But, he wants to continue to improve. And, I think he's still going to go out there and have a good year. I mean, especially with, the team that he plays for. But how much better can Brock Purdy get is the question. I really think the only way you could truly evaluate him is if, if he doesn't have all of his weapons. Like, if they lose Ayuk, how much longer is George Kittle going to be playing? Christian McCaffrey, probably still got great, 2 great years left. And then, might start to tail off. You still got Deebo Samuel. It's going to be interesting. But that's really the only way I think you're going to truly evaluate him is if he doesn't have his weapons. Because we did see when Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams went down, that was when the 49ers lost 3 games in a row. And everyone's like, yep, Brock Purdy is, he's a system quarterback. He's a game manager. He's everything. But that's really the only way. And it's hard. He's a very hard quarterback to evaluate. Because you think he's good, but at the same time, it's like, well, look at the weapons that he has. But like I said, I think it's somewhere in between. I think he's in between that system quarterback and, I don't think he's elite. But yeah, he's not elite. He's not elite, but he's not, so he's not elite, but he's not a system quarterback. He's in between that. That's what I think. Yeah, like I said, you played against the Ravens, who were arguably the best team last year, and you threw 4 picks. Like, they had a really good team last year. They had a really good defense. So, there's no shame in that. The Browns have a good defense. The Bengals, were on a roll. Kirk Cousins was on a roll when you played against them. It's not like they really didn't lose to a bad team last year. Like, the teams that they lost to, the Bengals were hot when they played them. Kirk Cousins was hot when they played the Vikings. Those 2 teams didn't make the playoffs, but they were, playing good football when the 49ers played them at the time, and the 49ers were not playing well. And the Ravens and the Browns both made the playoffs, and they both had very good defenses. And the Browns game was at home. Well, for the Browns. It's a home game for the Browns. So, it's not like they lost to, the Panthers or something. They lost to teams that were playing good football. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's a tough quarterback to evaluate. But you know what? He's trying to improve, and you know what? He's motivated. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think he's always going to have that chip on his shoulder because he was the last pick taken in the draft a couple of years ago. He wants to continue to show that he belongs, and so far he has done that. But he's always going to have naysayers, so he's just going to have to continue to prove them wrong as well. So, but let me know what you guys think about what Purdy had to say. Also, what kind of season do you think he's going to have? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we did talk about him a little bit today, but we're going to talk about him in the final segment of the show. We're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes and the Raiders, kind of trolling Mahomes and what his response was to that. I wanted to get into that and discuss it on the final segment here. So with that being said, we're going to take one final break, so stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Raiders trolling Patrick Mahomes and his response to it. So, there was a video that was released on social media, and it was of Raiders rookie safety Trey Taylor mocking Mahomes using a Kermit the Frog puppet that was dressed up in a Chiefs jersey. He had the hair resembling Mahomes, and they were, from a couple years ago when Mahomes was that clip of Mahomes, and you heard not you heard him, but you saw him mouthing "I'm here" because they were beefing during the game, him and Max Crosby. So they were mocking Mahomes there. Now, Mahomes downplayed the incident. He said it's still early in the year. Stuff like that happens. It'll get handled when it gets handled. He doesn't need additional motivation. They don't need to send me anything to keep me motivated. Now, listen, I thought the video was funny, but I thought it was funny, but at the same time, like, why are you doing that? Why? Why do you think that's a good idea? Now, again, many people probably thought it was funny, but it's just, you're the Raiders, and since Patrick Mahomes has taken over as a starter for the Chiefs, he has a 10-2 record against the Raiders. He has a 66 completion percentage, 5,000 yards passing, 43 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And you know what? That's a pretty good year for a quarterback. But that's not even a year. That's against a team. That's against one team. And you're doing that. Now, I understand last year, they went into Arrowhead and they beat the Raiders. What was the other time they beat the Raiders? Oh, I think it was during the during the COVID season, because they also did win in Arrowhead another year too with Derek Carr. But why are you doing that? Now, I understand you do that behind closed doors. Okay, don't let that get out. But what do you? You're just Mahomes says he doesn't need the added motivation, but the Chiefs are gonna remember that. The Chiefs are going to remember that, and the moves they made this offseason between the draft and free agency, including that improving that receiving core. We could see those explosive plays back in a big way against the Raiders, let me tell you. Seeing Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown just, running streaks down the field. And Mahomes throws like 6 touchdowns against them or something. I know we did a segment earlier this offseason where, Antonio Pierce was talking about the strategy that they have for Mahomes. But listen, it's a new year. The Chiefs are going to be better. Last year was not a great year for Mahomes in terms of, the regular season. But, of course, they, went on and won the Super Bowl, so it really didn't matter. But now, the Chiefs are going to be better. They're going to be back to that, kind of offense that they had when Tyreek Hill was on the team. And if that's the case, the NFL's in trouble. And the Raiders are in trouble. Because 43 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, that's a touchdown to interception ratio against one team. That is going to improve exponentially with what the Raiders decided to do. Now, again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just, there's a time and place. This is not the time or place. Because Mahomes owns the Raiders. He does. And you're only just adding more to that fire with what you're doing. Again, you do it behind closed doors, okay, but to let that get out and be posted all over, because that stuff travels. It's all over the place. And if you don't think the Chiefs are going to do anything about it, you're mistaken, because they're going to let their game do the talking. I don't think you should mock the Chiefs. I mean, look at the Bengals. Burrowhead. What ended up happening? Loss. Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Last year, Deion Dawkins talking about, oh, yeah, Mahomes has never played on the road. He's never played in Buffalo with the full crowd. Loss. Listen, and trash talking is a part of the game, and we understand that. But you also got to back it up. Those teams did not back it up. The Raiders got to back it up. Now, I'm talking about the playoffs when it comes to the Bengals and the Bills. The Raiders, it's been a couple years since they made the playoffs. And, right now, I mean, I don't think the Raiders are going to be an awful team. They have talent on this roster. And I think they're going to have, they're going to be around 500. I don't know if they're going to finish over 500. I think they're going to be a little bit below it. But, this is regular season beef that these teams had. This doesn't extend into the postseason. But you just, I don't think it was a smart move on their part to do that. Especially because Patrick Mahomes is, the best quarterback in the NFL. And he's only going to improve those numbers against the Raiders. Now, I'm not saying they got to, kiss his feet, but it's not smart. It's not smart. Because, yeah, he said it, doesn't need any motivation. You want to give him more motivation to go out there and run up the score against you guys if he has the opportunity to do so? I don't think you want that. But, yeah, I'm not saying the Raiders should just kiss his feet. No. But why do you have to do that? There is no point in doing that. And somebody asked Mahomes at Media Day, during the Super Bowl, can you do an impression of Kermit? And he said, you're hearing it right now with me talking, or something along the lines of that, which I thought was funny. Like, Mahomes knows. He knows. He's self-aware with people making those comparisons. But I don't know why. I don't know what the point of that is. Now, if the Raiders go into Arrowhead on Christmas again and they win, then you're going to see that Kermit the Frog puppet being, thrown up in the air in celebration. But yeah, just not the best move by the Raiders. But listen, Mahomes doesn't care. It's going to get handled when it gets handled, and it's going to get handled when the Chiefs take on the Raiders. Let's see. So they play them on Christmas. I forget what week. Oh, no, they don't play on Christmas. They play on Black Friday. My bad. That's the Black Friday game. I apologize for that. They played on Christmas last year. They play on Black Friday this year. So these two teams, they play each other week 8. Now, that's in Vegas. That's a 4:25 start Eastern Time on CBS. And then they play week 13 on Black Friday. So that's November 29th. And that's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's on Amazon. So it'll get handled week 8 in Vegas. And then after that on Black Friday, like I said. But that just, listen, I mean, it adds some sort of something to the fire. Again, not the worst thing in the world. The Raiders, like I said, they don't have to kiss his feet. But it's just, why do you got to do that? Why do you got to do that? Why and post it on social media? Why do you think that's a good idea? Because, you're just asking for the Chiefs to come in and embarrass you. But that's just my opinion. I still thought it was funny, but it would be funny if, it's me and a few of my friends playing around with the Kermit the Frog puppet and, talking like Patrick Mahomes with it. But, it's another thing when you got a division rival doing it to Mahomes. But that's what they decided to do. So that's really my thoughts on it. But, yeah, so let me know what you guys think about that. How'd you feel about it when you saw it? The video. It's all over the place. You could find it. And and then you could see Mahomes' response as well. But we do have a game this week. Thursday, Hall of Fame game. Again, I mean, the starters aren't going to play in this, but you know what? It's a game. We have an NFL game, and from now until February. So, well, actually, no, there's like that. But no, we got college football still. So, you got that. You got that with the NFL. It's going to be a lot of fun, you know, and this has been a long off season, and you know, I appreciate the patience because, you know, it was tough at times to think about it, to come up with things, and I know I've been repetitive on topics, whether it's, you know, guys looking for a new contract, and you know, you got the draft and free agency, you know, but it's just want to get to games, and we are getting to that point, and we are gonna, you know, talk about it all, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. You know, this year's gonna be a lot of fun, and you know, I can't wait for the start of the season. So, but yeah, Thursday we got a game, and you know, we'll definitely talk about it. You know, kind of get an idea of who's playing in the game, because you know, it's not gonna, you're not going to see Caleb Williams against C.J. Stroud. You're not going to see that, but you will see that in the regular season when they do play each other. So, but yeah, exciting times. We're getting to that point. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in today. Make sure to check out all the other shows. And yeah, so with that, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.